Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And we are once again going to be taking a look at the newest Hinata, the Ballroom Knight. So we did her initial showcase, we did her summons and everything, and while she is fairly strong and powerful, she is a bit limited in usefulness of her full entire kit, because we need 300 skill points to get the full 100% crit resistance down. This multi-hit state only applies to like 3 or 4 teams maximum at any point. So I was really she's really good. It's just that there's not a lot of places to use her. But if we just ignore this skill pretty much completely, what she is she's a really big physical attack buffer with some extra shit. And we can make use of that on other stacking teams. So today we're going to go into the Chamber of Memories, actually, because she is on Shizu's will. And the Chamber of Memories, the aspect stage, does have a few stages where we can use Shizu's will characters. So we have the Fount of Wisdom stage for Shizu's will here, and then also the Summer Memories, Shizu's will, and technically Commander. So we have 2 places that we can use Hinata, and these are both physical-oriented stages. This is wanting Summer Memories Milim. This is wanting her wind version of her EX self, Hinata. So I think this is going to be a good place to see how much she can help with just a little bit of extra usefulness, almost completely negating her second skill. But I just want to see how well she performs as a support character for these other physical teams. So with that said, let's jump in. Alright, first up is a Fount of Wisdom team / whatever we can use in this stage. So we've got Protector Diablo, who is giving the extra 60% damage increase to the Fount of Wisdom Hinata. And then we've got Fount of Wisdom Rimuru, and I know that they both have the physical buff, right? I know that. However, I tried to use this team with Albus instead for the Pierce, and that would have given us more damage overall, because it would have been a different buff entirely. However, in a lot of the runs that I was trying, I kept getting orange orbs. And even though I have Guy and Fount of Wisdom Hinata who can change at least, 1 orange each, there were at least like 6 runs where I got 3 oranges and I couldn't do anything about it. I just got fed up. So take this team with a caveat that Albus will help Hinata do a lot more damage, but the RNG I didn't want to deal with, because we already have Guy changing 2 greens, Hinata changes a green, and Albus also changes 2 greens. Like, that's a lot of green orb changing and not a lot of orange. So we brought Rimuru instead. We'll still benefit a little bit because he does give 20% physical resistance down. Whoop-de-doo. So it's not like he's not contributing at all. He's just not at peak performance. Sad Rimuru. Can't get it up. Hinata. Hinata. The new Hinata. We will be able to use both of her skills, kind of. The 10% stacking ult damage isn't going to be super duper impactful, because this is not a team that is using skill resets to keep it cheap. And so orb changes cost a lot, the ult swaps from Blanc are going to cost a lot, and eventually we're just going to run out of points. And also, because Diablo was the very first EX Protector, he doesn't give us a lot of points, right? He raises cap by 30 each time you use him. Our Protectors now raise it by 50. Which it's 20 more points every single turn, adds up really fast. So he's just not super ideal for content nowadays. But we do have a lot of orb changes. Guy does 2 greens and an orange. Hinata does a special convert 1 and 1. Rimuru does 2 oranges. Blanc has the alt swap. Blanc also has the weakness strike, which will help this Hinata. The synergy resistance down, I mean, if we do happen to hit that natural 2% synergy chance, then great. If not, then oh well. But Hinata herself has a 60% physical buff, or the Fount of Wisdom Hinata, 60% physical buff, and a 40% alt damage buff for herself, which is going to be eclipsed by Guy, because he's giving 80%. Guy is also giving guaranteed crits, therefore making sure that the new Hinata's crit resistance down actually means something. Because if we didn't have a way to give anyone crit rate, we would only be getting a 70% physical buff, and you might as well just take her off the team and put Albus on instead. So we did need someone to be able to activate the crit rate. Otherwise, I mean, this team is fairly well built. We have orb changes, we have 5 big-time 80-point buff skills. We have a triple alt swapper to blues. Like, this is a team that I would run in scenarios where I needed to use it, like right stat here, because it makes sense. And we do have enough big-time buffs to get to 300 points before we activate the new Hinata, therefore ensuring that we can get the full 100% crit resistance down debuff, which is kind of the point. The second team for Summer Memories, when we use that, that obviously does not have the capability of doing 300 skill points in a turn. But as long as we get, one example here in this team with stacking that's not focused on green orbs, so the multi-hit doesn't matter, but we also get an example of what we can do on a burst team, I think it will give good, give everyone a good idea of what she can do as far as support. So here, now in turn 4, we have enough points finally, where we don't have to orb change every single turn and have some left over, to start stacking up her alt damage skill. So because these are not green orbs, we're not getting the multi-hits. If we had brought the Commander Hinata, we would have done that, but we didn't. So while we aren't benefiting off of the multi-hit, we are still getting 10% extra alt damage, which will stack alongside the Guy temporary 80% alt damage. So we are going to help, and that second skill is going to mean something. It's just that it's going to get expensive, right? We don't have a lot of skill points to use to begin with because Diablo's cap is very low. Orb changes are going to cost, 75, 100 points soon, plus the alt swap, because now we're more than halfway into the fight and people have alts. We can't really use too many of the extra alt damage buffs from a new Hinata, which means that it's not something you should really, really bank on if you're in a pinch. 10% extra alt damage is nice, but it's not as impactful as you want to think it is versus some other buffs that are 10%, or once you hit 50, 60%. Like, that's when it really starts to make an impact. But 10% is a pretty minimal increase. But we're on turn 6 now. We do have an attack nerf that we have to wait off because I think she's nerfed until turn 8 is when it falls off, if I remember correctly. But let's use another stack of the alt damage just for funsies. We'll bring Blanc in for Hinata now. We'll alt swap. We'll orb change with Guy, and that's pretty much almost all of the points that we can use at this point. So we are very close to getting the EX alt for Hinata. So once we get to that EX and we get the attack debuff off, we can nuke. However, because Diablo is not very good, we need to wait an extra turn so we can actually have our skill cap be over or at 400 points to even attempt to use all 5 of the big time buffs, therefore giving us the full crit resistance down debuff from new Hinata. So we're going to have to burn another turn because this is at 370, we're on turn 7. Turn 8 is your traditional nuke turn, but turn 8 we're going to have one more use of Diablo to get us to that 400 cap, which means we're going to nuke turn 9, which is fine for the most part, because he gets extra defense on turn 10, and we don't want that. We want to see good damage without him having any extra buffs that we can't deal with. So here, it's just an alt swap and an orb change, that's all we can do. We could bring in the new Hinata for another buff. I don't really know if I do that, though. Looks like I do. Okay, because he's going to alt, and I don't want Guy and Blanc to take those hits. And we do have points, so we should be able to make it back if I use it. Again, I don't remember if I do. Looks like I am going to. Yeah, okay. So I think that's 4 stacks now of that. So we're up to 80 plus 40, so 120% alt damage. Like, that's pretty impactful now. That's almost what the new Rimuru is giving himself. That's exactly what the Commander Hinata is giving, 120%. So yeah, I didn't want them to take that. He healed for 0 because he heals up to a certain threshold of his HP, but we're not at that point. So, let's use some buffs. We need to use the physical buff from Rimuru because we need to add to the total skill points allowed in a turn. So we're going to use it, even though, again, it's minimal gains. His 65% is worse than the new Hinata's 70%. So we're only getting 20% alt resist or physical resistance down. Not very impactful. But the weakness strike, boom. If we happen to synergy, then great. If not, well, oh well, not a big deal. We're not here. We're not running a synergy-focused team. We're running a crit-focused team today. So there's the attack buff, there's the alt damage, there's the crit rate, and now that we've used 300 skill points, we can now use the 100% crit resistance down. And now Hinata is at full power. So let's send these 2 orbs, see how much damage I do, and then her alt. 124, 137, 9. That's pretty good damage. That's more damage than what the Fount of Wisdom team did when it originally came out, for sure. Fount of Wisdom, being the first EX team, did a crap ton of damage compared to what had released prior to it. It's now been a hot minute since that came out, though. 5.6 million damage. I'm going to call that pretty good. I'm going to call that pretty good because that's a lot more damage than we would have done with just the normal Fount of Wisdom team with Albus and... who else were we using at the time? Light Raphael, I think, was on the team because he's Fount of Wisdom. Yeah, I think we were doing like 3 million damage with that team. But there we go. We've used her in maybe not a true optimized setting, but she's still provided a lot of support to her other wind version of herself to help her do a lot more damage than what we're traditionally used to seeing out of her. So that's very good. Let's try it on a burst team now. Alright, and the next team is Summer Memories focused. We do have double Hinata. So we've got Summer Memories trainee, who is giving us 40 skill points every time we use her, and then also ensuring that future hands are blue orbs and lowering defense, because that's a thing. But we have Summer Hinata, who can orb steal. We have the new Hinata, who's going to buff. But since we do not have the physical capability of using 300 skill points in one turn, we are only ever going to be at that 50% crit resistance down debuff. However, Summer Hinata does give guaranteed crits to Milim, so we are, again, activating from a different character to help another character do more damage. We're bringing Summer Memories Ramus because we need her turn 1 orb change. That's fine. She also has the Enamor ability to give us extra alt gauge, which is nice. And then, obviously, Milim is the AoE DPS. She's got the orb steal for blues and her own personal buffs. And then Summer Memories Shizu with the single alt swap and the 2-turn weakness strike. But since this stage, just like the beatdown battle, it seals attack skills on turn 4, we need to make sure that on turn 4, we use, or turn 3? Turn 4, we actually use Milim, Hinata, and Shizu's buffs, because they all 3 of them last for 2 turns. So we need to avoid that seal, and we can't have the new Hinata get sealed because she's kind of the point. So she needs to go into the back, which means that we need one of the characters up front who is going to get sealed. So that's kind of why they made these buffs last for multiple turns, which is nice, the fact that they do last. But we took Summer Memories Hinata out so we could bring her in this turn for whoever has the most orbs, so we can triple orb steal, which is going to be Romorus. But because trainee is giving us 40 skill points when we use her, this means that turn 3, then anything beyond that, is going to be full guaranteed hands of blues, which is great. So Hinata comes in, we don't have enough points for orb steal, but by using trainee, we now have 40 more, which means now we can steal, which is nice. And then we'll bring Milim in, and this does not get her ult by any means, but because on Milim's orb steal, which only steals blue orbs, and trainee is guaranteeing that the entire next hand is blue orbs, we're going to be able to get quite a bit of alt gauge for her next turn, and do decent amounts of damage that we have to split up between the 3 enemies because they heal. So we have 3 Milim orbs, that's already pretty good. I want 6, so we're going to use 6. Alright, there's the heal, cool beans. Turn 3, they seal defense skills. Not a big deal. We're not a defensive focused team here. I just want to see how much gauge we're going to get. Almost to an EX ult. So we're going to bring Romorus in for new Hinata, so she can just stay in the back for now. We're not using her ult damage buff right now because it's not the focus. I am already kind of short on points as it is. I need to be able to use everything that I need to. We don't have the points to use another 25 point skill here, so it's just going to be left on the edge. Like, we could have used it right here, but I don't really care about that. So 74 points we need to build up for next turn because we need to use some skills. We need to use some buffs next turn, and we're going to need those points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now, Milim is not going to have an EX ult yet. But because all these buffs that we have up front now last for 2 turns, we're okay in leaving Milim, which means that we'll get either her EX ult from orbs or the Enamor skill, which will cover that last little tiny bit of ult gauge that we're missing this coming turn. So Weakness Strike, guaranteed crits, and then the attack and Dark Attack, all of them last for 2 turns, so they'll be active now, and they'll be active next turn as well. We will use Trainee to do the ult swap boom, and technically, yes, I could bring Hinata in now to do a 10% ult damage buff. I'm really not concerned about that. Again, it's not something you should really focus on burst teams, because you're already trying to use an 80-point skill. Like, this isn't, these aren't green orbs either. They don't give you a lot of skill points back. And I'm even using a charm to give us extra skill points. If we didn't use that, we'd be in a whole lot of trouble there. But there's the attack seal. Doesn't matter because we've already used our attack buffs on the front line. So now we're free to bring in Hinata and give Milim a 70% physical buff and put a 50% crit resistance down debuff on the enemies. And we are guaranteed crits because of the Summer Hinata skill. So we'll just swap the Hinatas, and boom. And we will use Trainee again to lower their defense, because that totally matters. But it also gives us 40 skill points, which means that we can use the Orb Steal again for Milim. And we'll see how much damage our normal orbs do. We don't need to use Trainee again, because we don't need to do anything else here. Okay, I guess we're not going to see how much our normal orbs do, because Milim should just kill. Yeah, 613k. It's not a lot of damage, but this is not a stacking team full of 80-point buffs for 8 turns. This is 5 turns with 1 big-time skill and some other low-cost skills. So I think that is an acceptable number. An acceptable number. Not a super uber-duper great number, but also not a horrible number. Like, we actually killed. This was Inferno 3. Or, it's not Inferno 3. It's like Inferno 1.5, I think, is what Chamber of Memories is. But still, acceptable damage, we killed, and we did use Hinata in not an optimized green team focus setting, and she still performed pretty well as a dedicated support character. So, do I think she's good? Yeah. Do I think she's worth summoning for right now? No. You still shouldn't do that. Anniversary, man. Gotta remember that. But let me know what you guys think of this new Hinata now, trying to use her on other focus teams. That's it for me. Take it easy, guys, and I will see you all later.